I'd like to give a run through the Thule Shield 25s, which I purchased some while ago and have been using on my trail riding in considerable several hundred miles. I've placed it next to a supermarket reusable bag because the two are connected. Most panniers for cycles are sold not for adventure travel, not for cycling around the world, but for trips to the supermarket or to the shops. They're primarily an alternative to riding on the bus or walking, which is the way society is being orientated with the 15-minute cities. A cluster of towns with the city as its core. But the three methods of transport that will be freely available: walking, riding the bus or cycling. And that's where Thule they have entered the market. This market is expanding, and the predictions between 2024 and 2035 is almost 5% per year, and that's how increase is progressing. I've chosen the Lidl shopping reusable bag because the contents of these are roughly between about 19 litres and 25 litres. The norm is around 21, and Lidl's and Aldi are ahead of the game, being German-based company. So the reusable contains or will contain on average about 8 items that someone would buy, and the contents of this is 25. Take off a bit if you fold the lid, but you can also use these panniers open. You don't have to close the lid. That is where we're coming from with regards to the thought behind the Thule Shield. I'll now go on to a few items which I like about the Thule and some which I do not like. The design of the bag is that it is folded generally twice and that it is clipped together. Once it's clipped together, if the weather is cold, this is virtually impossible to open unless you have and it plays a toll on your thumb, particularly if you have splits from cold weather and your hands are cold. It's very difficult to open this bag. They should have selected a better method, well, certainly better clips for opening. I don't know why they did not choose, I think it's TWI, which is a military spec. They manufacture clips for military equipment, which have been extensively tested and open on a whole range of temperatures. So the clips themselves, the other feature which I do not like about this is when the bag is closed as such, the shoulder strap, which accompanies and is practical and useful, the whole pull of the strap is on the lock itself. So that is why they have a lock, which is very difficult to open. I've fettled this down with a file. Of course, the problem is that it can pull open. However, to alleviate that, eBay sells some stainless steel key rings, 35-40 millimeters diameter, which I will fit in here, and then the shoulder strap can be clipped. It never came with this. The shoulder clips are supposed to attach here. Of course, as I've mentioned, you've got that issue with the clips pulling if you want to actually be able to open them in the cold. I've fitted this handle so I can lift it from the rack. What I do like about it is the back system. And although there's been some talk about the clips, I have never found these a problem. The pannier itself stays onto the rack. Pulling it opens it, and then when you close it, it really needs to be pressed and locked. There's a ratchet system, and that's quite positive. Fully adjustable lateral, and you can fit this on the bike to get a good snug fit. You don't get the rattles from these, which is nice. That is what I like about it. So you can go from about 8mm, a lightweight rack, up to a large touring rack, and it will take from about 8 to 16mm. And I've measured that and it's accurate. You've got the usual retainer so that you can retain the bag. This, I think, could have been wider across the whole base of the sack, protecting it, just in case it moves and started rubbing. These rattle slightly, but then of course it's very much the same on all the makes of panniers. I've used a fabric tape to stop the rattle here, and on the bicycle I've wrapped it with rubber vulcanizing tape, and that's used in the electrical industry for waterproofing joints. Or you could use some inner tube. It's all a bit of a bodge, but it does stop that annoying rattle. The other thing with aluminium bikes is you don't really want anything rubbing against the aluminium. It will wear. I mount this onto a touring frame rack because it's more practical and stronger. If we look inside, you can see there is a simple compartment for some documents and a couple here, nothing special. The other point which I'm not really that enamoured with is that everything is riveted. So should an occasion occur where you needed to replace something, you haven't got a nut and bolt. That's a bit of a problem, and a nut and bolt down here would have been particularly good so that some rubber could be pulled over these brackets to alleviate the slight knocking which occurs. That's a bit of a point. I've gone through this. I think it would be better adjustable, but it's not. The problem with these, when it's mounted in such fashion and stitched on, these, should they break, it becomes a problem to replace. In fact, you can't replace it unless you have an industrial sewing machine. An issue, if it arrives, needs sorting out and alleviating. Heavily stitched here, and it is doubled up, and none of this is sewn. The pannier itself is pressure glued. And I think that really explains the bag. It's the same size. The contents of a supermarket reusable bag will fit into one pannier, and you probably can get a little more on top. It's secure on the rack. It doesn't move, even if the clips are undone. If one of them, I like that they're individual, because even if one of these becomes in effect unlocked, the other will, it's belt and braces, so the other will hold in place. I'm not terribly keen when there's only one lock and two hangers. That relies on too much. On a bicycle, if something goes wrong when you're on the road and this falls off, it makes you vulnerable. I choose this yellow. I bought them actually second hand, a pair of these. It was already yellow, but I would always choose a bright colour for the road. I just would not go to a dark colour. It's dangerous enough being on the road, and black is not the best colour to be cycling with. even if you have a light. It's nice to be light and bright. So primarily these bags are an urban transport bag, so that you're able to shop, and cycling being the less worse of bussing and walking, that you're able to at least keep the contents dry and perform a necessary function of life. The material is rather like curtain siding, which is on the used on lorries. It is strong and durable. The top is not magnetic, it's merely to create a rigid top. So that's really about as much as you can say about the pannier. Price of them, I believe these you can buy discount and the price is about £83. Horrendous, that's for a pair. eBay, there are alternatives. Chinese, after all, this is made in China. And so, to the same construction, and those are about £30 a pair. AliExpress, there's a whole range of them, and you import those directly from China, and those start at around £10. You pay your money, you take your choice. The other thing about these bags, they are a vulnerable, nickable item. They do need securing to the bike, or you take it into the supermarket. Leaving it on the bike without it being, in effect, connected to your locking mechanism is really, I think, a bit of folly. They'll disappear. Well, certainly in my area they will. So here we are. That's the Thule.